Hey guys, Fan here again, and today I'm going to be covering a little bit about the buildings in the shop. Now, this is a tutorial that's geared more towards the newer players and the intermediate players, and basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking a little bit about each building, and I'm going to be talking about, how you should be prioritizing what you build, and basically I'm going to assign a rank to each building. And it's either going to be high, medium, or low. Obviously, high priority means that you should be building those buildings as soon as you get the chance, and low priority means that you don't have to build that building until you actually need it. So first off, the power up circle is something that's very important, and it's also something you build early on in the tutorial, so I'm not going to talk about that because everyone has it already. Moving on to the Arcane Tower. Now the Arcane Tower I'm going to label as medium priority. Basically what it does is for each Arcane Tower you have, you're going to do 300 more damage whenever the Arcane Tower activates in the arena defense. Now Arcane Towers are very, very strong for defense, so ultimately they're very good if you don't like losing. I know that some people just don't like losing very much, and if you're one of those people, you can definitely invest in Arcane Towers. I myself am one of those people, so I have, quite a few Arcane Towers, and I prioritized it fairly highly. However, if you don't care so much about winning or losing, and you just want to maximize your results, then what you should do is look at your team. Now, your arena team, every week you're going to be able to finish somewhere in this weekly rewards ranking. And basically what you want to do is, if you're finishing like from 0 to 800 points every week, that means that your team is slightly weaker than most other people's, and at that point there's really no use in building Arcane Towers because you're going to finish within that range anyways, and there's no difference between finishing at 0 points and finishing at 899 points. Now the case where you actually want an Arcane Tower is if you're ending up very, very close to the division lines between each of these ranks at the end of each week. So let's say at the end of one week you ended up at 890 points, or maybe 1080 points, or just somewhere in these division lines, and you think you can, by winning a couple more matches, you think you can keep up your points and move on to the next tier. That's when you really want to be building Arcane Towers, because the difference between each of these is somewhat substantial, especially as you move later on in the game. And you definitely want to keep a higher rank if it's achievable. So if you find yourself finishing within each of these divisions, just missing out on the other division, then that's when you want to be building Arcane Towers. Otherwise, there's not too much point, so I'm going to label Arcane Towers medium priority because it more or less depends on, the situation with your arena team and ranking. Moving on, we have the Magic Shop, and I'm not talking too much about this one either because you build it really on in the tutorial. Now I will say that for the Magic Shop you do have to buy additional slots, and I actually find these slots to be pretty cheap, and I kind of like the value they provide. Magic Shop refreshes every hour, and there's very often a good rune or mystical scroll or just something that you want in the shop, and ultimately it's something that I think is worth upgrading. And I think I pretty much bought out all the slots by level 15 or 20, so I think, as far as buying out the slots, if you do play this game a lot, you should definitely try and buy those slots out as soon as you can. If you don't play this game very much and only play once or twice a day, then it doesn't matter quite as much because you won't have many chances to check the Magic Shop refresh every hour. Moving on to Temple of Wishes, very similar thing, you get it in the tutorial I believe, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. Obviously it's very good. Same with Crystal Mine, I believe you get this pretty early on, and obviously it generates a ruby crystal every 10 hours, so that's very, very valuable. Now moving on to the Fuse Center. I'm actually going to label the Fuse Center a low priority. And this is because you don't actually need this building until you're actually trying to awaken a monster. And even then, you don't actually need this building unless you're missing, you know, one specific type of essence, and you really need to fuse lower essences in order to make it. So I'm going to quickly show you what the Fuse Center is all about if you guys haven't seen it. And basically it looks a little bit like this. So, you know, let's say that I need 11 fire essences, high fire essences, in order to upgrade a monster. Then of course, you know, I only have 10, so I would spend a lot of mana crystals in order to upgrade to the 11th fire essence, so I can actually upgrade my monster, so I can awaken my monster. Now the reason I mark this as low is because, you know, if you're missing the essences, you can just spam run the highest level of the hall that you can. So if I was missing fire essences, I would spam run Hall of Fire a lot, and ultimately you're probably gonna end up getting the essence you need anyways. And the other reason is that, you know, upgrading is not cheap. As you can see, you know, for one fire essence it costs 50,000 mana crystals. So if you're missing like more than one, it becomes really expensive in terms of mana crystals to upgrade it. And I think this is a very inefficient way of using mana crystals, especially when you can just use your energy and probably find one of these or more every like 25 energy or so. So that's not very worth it. I am officially labeling the Fuse Center as a low unless you know, very specifically need one more and you can't find it. Moving on, we have the Ancient Stones, and what this is, you know, it generates more mana. It's, you know, 540 mana stones every hour, and it stores 3000. I'm labeling this as high priority because it's a resource generation unit. And basically in this game, obviously ruby crystals are the most important, but mana crystals are actually really important as well, and you can pretty much do everything in the game with mana crystals if you have enough. So it's very imperative that you get your mana generation as fast as possible. So I'm definitely labeling Ancient Stones as high priority. You should get this as soon as you get the chance. Moving on to Tranquil Forest. This is actually something that's very good as well. It's basically a, you know, shelter where you can place 4 monsters in this building, and every hour they're gonna get 100 experience. I'm labeling this as high priority as well. You should get this as soon as you can because, you know, the passive experience boost to 4 monsters is actually very valuable. Now, even if you have, you know, your team of 4 already max level, you can still use this to level up some, you know, fodder monsters. For example, in my forest right now, you can see that, you know, I have a bunch of like 3 stars and only one like 4-star in my Tranquil Forest. So the other 3 are all 3 stars, and the reason I'm leveling them up is so I can evolve them into 4-star. And, you know, after they get to 4-star, I can use them to evolve my other 4-star monsters that are actually on my team. So, you know, even if your main team has max level, this Tranquil Forest is extremely useful for leveling up Rainbow Angel mons, or, you know, just random 3-star monsters that are not on your main team but can be used to evolve your main team eventually. So definitely very good. I actually consider this a sort of resource building as well, because experience ultimately is a resource. So definitely high priority on Tranquil Forest. Moving on to the Fusion Hexagram here. This is something I call low priority. I think it costs quite a bit, and ultimately it's not very accessible or usable as well. I'll show you guys what this is. And, you know, basically you can make any of these 4 monsters, but in order to make, like, say this monster, I need all of these monsters to make it. And you know, these are very specific monsters, and they need to be at a very specific level. So it's very hard to find these monsters, and you know, even harder to level them all up and awaken them just for one monster. So ultimately, I don't think this is worth it. This is much more for intermediate to advanced players who are really just looking for great monsters. Other than that, you don't really need this, especially if you're just beginning to play this game. So low priority on the what was it called? The fusion hexagram. Moving on, we have the Deep Forest Ent, and basically what this is once again it's a resource building, very similar to the other ones. Basically gives you mana stone production, 660 an hour, and it can store a max of 4,000 here. These numbers will change depending on how much your glory shot buildings are upgraded, but ultimately no matter what numbers you have here, it's still mana generation, and mana is very, very important. So once again, much like the other one, this is high priority. Get it as soon as you can. Moving on, I'm going to cover Crystal Titan, even though it's not purchasable with mana crystals. I think this actually costs 300 ruby crystals. However, it gives you 1 ruby crystal every 8 hours. And I think this building is something that is also high priority. Basically, it pays itself off in a little more than 3 months. And you don't even notice that the 300 ruby crystals are missing, because this just adds to your continuous income of ruby crystals, and it's definitely very worth it. If you're going to be playing this game, you're probably going to be playing for at least 3 months, if not significantly longer than that, because it does take quite a while to assemble a great team and beat all the dungeons. This is a game that's kind of harder than a lot of other mobile games that I've played, and it's definitely a game that you're going to be investing quite a bit of time in if you like it already. So as soon as you get 300 ruby crystals, if there's nothing else really pressing that you want to buy, I suggest you invest it in increasing your income with Crystal Titan. Crystal Lake and Gusty Cliffs are also experience buildings. They basically do the same thing, where they give you experience per hour, and it's passive experience. I haven't bought those yet because I find that 1 is enough for me. I don't really need that much experience leveling. So ultimately I would level these 2 medium to low. Monster Storage is the last one, and basically what it does is it helps you store your monsters, and there's 5 available slots in this monster storage building. Now I'm gonna rate this a low priority because I think it costs quite a bit of mana when I first bought it, and it's really an inefficient use of mana. And the way you can really tell that it's a crappy use of mana is just going to your monsters. You can actually upgrade the number of monster slots you have, and as you can see here, I have a ton of monster slots already because I kept upgrading it. And basically, the cost for upgrading this, even now it only costs me 45,000 to add another 5 slots, and I think that the building that stores 5 monsters, it does the exact same thing as this, but it costs like over twice as much. And if you don't have as many slots as I do, this is going to be way cheaper for you. So if you want to expand your inventory, do it this way. Expand your monster slots. You don't need that crappy building. And that's about it. I think that was the last building that I wanted to cover. So hopefully this gives you guys a good idea about what each of the buildings do and what you should be buying. And ultimately, you want to be investing in the resource buildings first, and after that you want to invest in all the medium priority buildings and get the low priority buildings last. Honestly, I don't even think you need monster storage like ever, but once you have enough, you might as well get it. So I hope that helps, and obviously there's some decorations here that you can build, and that's up to you and how you want to decorate your place. But that's all the buildings that are in this section, and I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you guys liked it, feel free to subscribe to this channel. I'll be coming out with a lot more tutorials, tips, tricks, and guides. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time.